What's up everybody, it's Jim, and it's finally time to do a game review for God of War Ragnarok. I'll be talking about the good for this game, then the bad and the verdict, what I'll rate God of War Ragnarok out of 10. But before we talk about those things, I'm going to talk about the plot for God of War Ragnarok. The plot for God of War Ragnarok is as follows. Set 3 years after the previous God of War 2018 game, God of War Ragnarok has Kratos and Atreus returning in the Norse mythology as the events of Ragnarok start to unfold. Get your Leviathan axe ready, as it's time to embark on a journey like no other. You will come across Odin, Thor, and other gods of the Norse mythology. This game is developed by Santa Monica Studios and published by Sony Interactive Entertainment. So now let's talk about the good for God of War Ragnarok. This game took me in total 24 days to complete the story, and I'll start off with the story for the good. So the story, I found it emotional, thrilling, fun and exciting. It definitely was an amazing story that was told here. The gameplay for God of War Ragnarok is perfect, some of the best gameplay I've seen in any video game, and if we talk about gameplay alone, this game would be in my top 3 video games of all time. The weapons are really great in this game. You've got your Leviathan axe and your Blades of Chaos returning, and this time they feel just as great or even better as they did in the previous God of War 2018 game. The Blades of Chaos has a lot more to do here. There's a lot more puzzles requiring it, which I appreciated. But the Leviathan axe never felt left out. The combat I thought was amazing in God of War 2018, and I thought, how could they improve it in this game? And they absolutely did. And the combat is absolutely sensational here. It can take a bit of getting used to, but once you get used to it, it's really, really fun. It feels very satisfying when you're taking down enemies, and love the camera angle of the characters as well. It really makes you feel like you're there in the moment. The controls are great here, and the fact that you can customize all the controls just made the controls even better. I was struggling to get used to pressing R2 for the combat, so I switched it to square, and it made such a big difference to me. More video games definitely have to have a customizing controls feature. The characters are excellent here, and I love the way that each character interacts with one another, but mainly with Kratos and his son Atreus. Kratos is now become one of my favourite video game characters, and you can see him behind me now. I think Christopher Judge, who plays him, did a fantastic job as Kratos. I thought Sonny, who played Atreus, did a fantastic job as his character, and Atreus definitely had a lot more to do in this game, which I really appreciated. Kratos and his son have a very special relationship together. Of course, there are other standout characters such as Mimir. Great to see him back in this game, and also Freya as well. I loved seeing all the Norse mythology characters and references, such as seeing Thor for the first time and seeing Odin for the first time in this game. It was just amazing seeing those characters. They got mentioned quite a few times in the previous God of War game, so it's great to finally see what they look like. The relationships I really enjoyed in this game, mainly with Kratos and his son Atreus, but Atreus also had great interactions with the characters, and so did Kratos as well. I want to talk about the characters Brock and Sindri, and I think they have a great relationship together here. They definitely had a lot more to do in the story. They're not just there to give you extra upgrades for your weapons and armor. Speaking of weapons and armor, there's plenty of upgrades for them in this game. There are also skills in this game too. And thanks to those skills, you feel even more like a God of War. The locations and open world I thought was sensational here. It was great to explore realms and explore Midgard again. Even though I did prefer the aesthetic of it in the previous God of War game, it was still nice to return to that realm. And speaking of realms, soon I'm going to do a video ranking all the realms from God of War Ragnarok, and also ranking the main characters from it. I want to do that video, I will link it in the description below. There are also a plethora of collectibles to get in this game, and I've not even completed all the collectibles, there's that many. You definitely won't be bored in this game. I've not even touched upon the score and the music. It's some of the best I've heard in any video game. It really felt like you were there in the moment. It was very emotional music at times as well, very exciting at times. It was just amazing stuff. Bear McCreary, who was a composer for it, just did a phenomenal job. I'm also a big fan of the song that Hosea did for this game called Blood Upon the Snow. If you've not heard it, highly recommend to, as it's a really good song. I want to now mention about the graphics, and the graphics, they just look absolutely incredible. It's some of the best graphics I've seen in any video game. In fact, this might be the best looking video game I've ever played. The amount of attention to detail is incredible on the snow and on the frost. Overall, there's just so much attention to detail in the game that I was just blown away by it. There was lots of attention to detail on the characters, such as on Kratos' beard, and when characters were smiling, or when they were sad. I felt like I was watching a movie because I was that immersed in the game and of how cinematic this game is. Playing God of War Ragnarok has become one of my favourite video games of all time, and it's become one of my favourite video game experiences, one that I will never forget. There was a lot of love, effort, and care put into this game, and every single person involved in the game should get a pat on the back. They all did phenomenal. But there are a couple of things I've got to say for the bad for God of War Ragnarok. The first thing I'll touch upon for the bad is the fact that I found the story quite confusing. At times I felt like they crammed a lot in the story, maybe didn't need to add as much as they did. And there's no in-game collectible map, so the only way I could really complete the game is by watching a YouTube guide or going on Google and finding a way. And I don't want to rely on those things when I'm completing a video game. So eventually I might complete God of War Ragnarok, but at the moment I've not done. But a lot of video games have this problem where the collectibles don't show up. You have to rely on video guides to find all of them. And I'll move on to the verdict for this game, and I recommend this game to people who like the previous God of War game from 2018, and also for people who like action and adventure games. God of War Ragnarok is in my top 5 video games of all time, and I'd rate it a 9.5 out of 10, close to being a masterpiece. So that's it for my game review of God of War Ragnarok, but before I conclude it, I'm going to compare this God of War game to the previous God of War game. So I want to start off with the story, and I thought for both these God of War games the story was amazing, but I prefer the story slightly more in the previous God of War game. But for the gameplay, I prefer it for God of War Ragnarok, and I prefer the characters in God of War Ragnarok, as there was a lot more of them. The locations, I'm going to have to say Ragnarok, as you go into a lot more places here, and there's a lot more attention to detail in all those places. In terms of the enjoyment for both these games, I would say they are tied. In terms of which God of War game I prefer now, I'm going to go with God of War Ragnarok, although God of War 2018 is still an amazing video game that people should play. But people need to play this one just as much. I look forward to going on God of War Ragnarok again soon, and it's an experience like no other. I just had such an incredible time with this game, and I can't recommend it enough. And I appreciate you all watching. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and comment. Until next time, ciao.